Episode 2 is when I realized that Sang-woo is the antagonist. He is the antagonist in Song Gi-hoon's life. Both are addicts. Okay, so both characters are flawed, but they are both addicts. The only difference is that Gi-hoon is addicted to something that is blatantly is illegal, the kind of gambling that is illegal. Sang-woo is addicted to the kind of gambling that is legal. Stock market, futures, that's how he lost his money, because he bet everything in there. That's gambling. Stock market is gambling, but it's legal. But Song Gi-hoon is addicted to something that's illegal, and that's just all sorts of gambling. So both are made from the same mold. They just have different outlets. But it doesn't change the fact that they're both addicted. So it was in the opening sequence, when the first thing that we know, that we see, is that Song Gi-hoon is thanking Abdul Ali and Sang-woo for helping him survive. And that is the very first time that it was a definitive statement of the character of Song Gi-hoon. In the first episode, I was not sure whether I would like him or hate him. He's so hard to hate and he's so hard to love. Because on the one hand, you have a person who's appreciative of other people. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He kept on being, he was very proud of Sang-woo, that he was so shocked when he saw him in the game. Because what he knows is that he is the successful friend. He's the guy that got into SNU, finished college, and got his life in order. But on the one hand, he seems to be an idiot. Or either an idiot or insensitive, because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to act. He doesn't think before he acts, and so he ends up hurting other people rather than helping them or complimenting them. So those are two faces of him that I saw in the first episode that it made me unsure whether I would like him or not. But in this scene, the very first scene where the first thing that he did was thank the two people that helped him, I realized that he doesn't have any mean bone in his body. He's just an idiot, but he doesn't have any mean bone in his body. On the other hand, I saw the contrast between the personalities of Sang-woo and Gi-hoon during the voting. So, as we know as an audience, now we know that this entire thing is a bad idea. You shouldn't be playing this game. So, but of course, we're going to see it. Otherwise, it won't be a series. But in the series, you would expect that it would be somebody who's smart that would see this, which is Sang-woo. If there's anybody in the series that would see this, it would be him. It would be him who should know that you should not continue this game. But it was actually Gi-hoon who voted not to continue the game, and Sang-woo was the one who voted to continue the game. And it shows me one thing, that Gi-hoon had more guts and courage in him to face his failures outside of this game, and Sang-woo couldn't. Sure, it's because there is a perception that Sang-woo is addicted to something legal, or that he lost his money because of the stock market, because of business or investments, rather than Sang-woo, who loses his money all the time because of illegal gambling. But then somebody with a strong character would rather recover from the loss the same way Gi-hoon is doing it. Yeah, he's a little bit dim-witted and is not thinking and stuff like that. But still, regardless of how an idiot you are, it requires courage for you to be able to go out into the world and try again, right? So there, in this moment when they were voting, I realized Gi-hoon has more. His emotional intelligence and his courage and his character is actually more intact than Sang-woo. Okay, next is that the no vote actually won, so they didn't continue the game, and everyone was released, and they got back into their real life after they were released. And one of the things that struck me when more people voted no, or at least half of them voted no, because but anyway, more people voted no, that many people are like this. Many people think that they are better than that they deserve better and that they can do better. um, it doesn't have to be something as extreme as a game. Just like when you're applying for a job, and I experienced this because I interview people when they're applying for a vacant position in our company, they would always feel like they deserve more, and they probably do. But we all have requirements and credentials that we need a candidate to have, and even when they don't have it, they still feel that they deserve more. So that's one example. Another example is just when you're just in an ordinary situation in everyday life, when you're school, for example, or maybe when you're purchasing something. I think that's a better example. When you're purchasing something, you pay for something, and you know it's a cheap item. You use it and you're angry that it is not performing well. When you bought something cheap, you get what you pay for. But we always have that mindset that we deserve something better. And this is the same thing in the game. So many people would think that I don't deserve this situation. I can do better than this. And so they tap out. So they go back into their normal lives and realize that no, this is not better. So I would rather go back, because the truth is that you ended up in that game. We ended up in the situations that we ended up in because we put ourselves in there. So this is exactly what we deserve. We deserve this because we put ourselves into this. We made decisions that led us here. So it is not because we're worse or we're bad people and so we deserve this game. It is simply because we put ourselves in there. I hope that made sense. Okay. Next is that scene when Sebyok actually, so they were released and Sebyok and Yoon ended up in one location, and Sebyok asked him to untie her, and Sebyok said, and then when he untied her, Sebyok said, I don't want to untie you because you're going to ask me to give you back your money. And then Gi-hun swore on his mother's name that he won't. And when she finally untied him, he actually he did what he promised he wasn't going to do, and that was to ask her for his money back. And he does not value his word. That's one, and he does not value his word. And that's actually, he's demonstrated that in the previous episodes, in the previous scenes. He doesn't value his words much. It's not because he doesn't value his mom. He just doesn't value his word. The scene with Sang-woo and Ali when they ended up in the convenience store, and Ali asked Sang-woo to use his cell phone. It was low battery. The battery was dead, and so they had to go to a convenience store and charge it. And then as soon as it goes on his phone, as soon as it is turned on, all he received was all this notification about his debts. People were trying to run after him, and it's a metaphor for his life, basically, that when he has nothing, when he has no connection to the whole world, he may be going through hell, but he doesn't hear all of those noise from multiple sources. But then as soon as he enjoys the connection, as soon as he enjoys technology, this is what he has. He is hunted by all of these debts. He's hunted by the painful reality of his situation. And then another thing to note is how Ali kept on calling him sir. And Sang-woo actually told him, don't call me sir, I'm just like you. This is proof that discrimination happened either way. So people who perceive themselves to be lower discriminate for those who they feel are above them based on their looks, right? So most often discrimination happens against people who look less. But here Ali is discriminating, he's discriminating, he's stereotyping Sang-woo just because Sang-woo was wearing a suit. He had his glasses on. He looked cleaner than he does, and so he feels like Sang-woo is actually above him. And in the reality is not. They were both in that game. Were both in that effed up game. So no one is better than the other. But because he was wearing a suit to Ali's eyes, he was above him. And also the fact that Ali is a foreigner in that country. Okay, next is when Sang-woo and Gi-hun was talking, when Gi-hun saw Sang-woo watching his mom from afar, and they were talking about how Sang-woo actually ended up in that game. And so Sang-woo was like, oh, I bet everything in the stocks, and not only in stocks but also in futures. And Gi-hun actually didn't understand what he said. But instead of Sang-woo at least briefly explaining it, instead of trying to make Gi-hun understand how he lost his money, he brushed him off. He was like, never mind. So that is a demonstration of just how low Sang-woo thinks of Gi-hun. He doesn't give him any credit. He doesn't even give him a chance to understand what he got, the concept of futures. He just said, never mind. So that's how low he thinks of Gi-hun. I do think episode 2 is a little slower than the rest, just because I personally would prefer for the character exploration to happen inside the game rather than outside. I am a huge fan of Battle Royale and other movies that are similar the game-based movies or adventure-based movies. I like movies like this. But I think one of the things that I really loved about Battle Royale is that when it started, it never slowed down. It started and it's just going faster. It just get greater, bigger. But here there was a pullback. There was the excitement and the rush of episode 1, and then there was a pullback. Like, this is slower. And it was very obvious to me that the director was trying to develop a connection between the audience and the characters by exploring the backgrounds of each character, which is not a bad thing. It's just that personally I prefer for things to have happened inside the game as well. But still a good one. Okay, next is episode 3.